Let the speculation commence as we now have a list of teams that have called on Kevin Durant, as Kevin Durant reportedly and his business partner are working with the Suns to find a trade partner. We're going to talk about it all and more and what it means right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's get into a quick update, not a full episode on this one. We already dropped the daily episode if you guys want to go and check that out. But this news I felt like was worth dropping something on and not waiting until tomorrow. So according to Shams Charania, KD and his business partner Rich Kleiman have met with this Phoenix Suns franchise to explore options, and 5 teams have been listed as possible landing spots for Kevin Durant. That includes the Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, Miami Heat, Minnesota Timberwolves, and New York Knicks, as well as several wild card suitors have made inquiries on Durant in the past 7 to 10 days, sources have said. We all know as well that Kevin Durant almost reunited with the Golden State Warriors at the trade deadline, but he decided that he did not want to be moved, did not want to move his family mid-season. But Kevin Durant and his $54 million contract that could be moving on, it now has a list of teams that are suitors that all make sense. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about each one of these teams, how much sense they make for Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns, and then like what's going to happen here, right? I think when you look at it first, the Houston Rockets, we've talked a lot about them ad nauseum at this point. Rockets fans and me and some other people all like think about this in 2 ways, right? You have the Houston Rockets who have a young squad here that they could look to continue to build some things on out, right, with this young squad rather than give up young pieces and draft selections to bring in Kevin Durant, who reportedly does not want to be a one-year rental. So any team that goes to Kevin Durant is looking to sign some form of contract extension to have a more kind of future and base there. Now, I don't think that's going to be a long-term 4 or 5 year extension, but you're probably looking at 1 to 2, maybe even a 3-year extension that Kevin Durant is looking for, and our team's going to want to take on that risk. The Houston Rockets are a team that's interestingly suited, right? Like I've said before, the Rockets have this thing where they could stay young, which makes sense, and what I think they should do, or they could do what, this trade could do if they end up trading for Kevin Durant. You get in a young player, you get in a veteran like Kevin Durant to add to your young core, and then you're hoping that by the end of that 2-3 year run that Kevin Durant has with that Amen Thompson or whoever else is ready to take the torch and carry it, and now they're the franchise player there. And throughout that time, you're getting them playoff experience, maybe going on battles and runs to the Western Conference Finals. That's what you're kind of hoping that happens there. Hell, if you can get a title in that time period as well, you look to do that, right? So that's with the Houston Rockets. We know that they have the trade assets. I did on the video earlier today, I talked about all the teams with the best trade assets in the NBA. The Houston Rockets have some of the best. With all the picks that they have, the fact that they do have Phoenix picks, those type of things, they have the assets to get that trade done. And then you have another team that's in a similar situation. That's the San Antonio Spurs. This is a team with tons of young talent that they can include in a trade. Reportedly, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, those are the players that are more so looking to move if they do a deal like this. But they also are a team that could just stay young, build organically, and wait till Wemby and whoever else as they continue to draft, especially with the pick that they have in this year's draft, if they continue to just build that thing out as well, that they can have a championship contender that can last several years, which is something that the Spurs have done before, is have a team that's in contendingship a lot of time over a decade, right? But it seems like they could be some within that organization that do want to make that jump start and get Kevin Durant. He's the one that we heard that they wouldn't be surprised if a deal's already done. That was kind of speculation from Bill Simmons on that one, but there is some talk around that, and it makes some sense, and that ends up being the case as well. The San Antonio Spurs have assets, much like the Houston Rockets. They can make any trade that they want to with the combination of draft picks and the young talent that they already have here, kind of more proven young talent. It could be enticing to a team like the Phoenix Suns if the Spurs, depending on how many of those players the Spurs want to make available. So that makes sense. The Miami Heat are the one team on here that I understand why they would want to trade for Kevin Durant. Like, I think you look at Pat Riley, he never really wants to go full rebuild. If you're able to add Kevin Durant to what you have going on there, you keep Bam, you have Khalil Ware as your young up-and-coming piece. but they don't have a lot of draft assets through the Miami Heat. So that's the question there that you have to ask yourself. Like, can the Heat even put up a package that is formidable with some of the packages the other teams are going to be able to put up in a trade for Kevin Durant? And that's what it gets down to. Now, if Kevin Durant wanted to try to force his way to the Miami Heat, of course, maybe there's that way. Reportedly, the Suns are working with Kevin Durant and his business partner to try to get a deal that makes the most sense for them. But let's keep in mind the Miami Heat can't move they can't move all of their own first round picks. They already have a potential pick swap with OKC in 2026. That it's top 14 protected to the Charlotte Hornets in 2027, right? Another pick swap potentially in 2028. So they can't move their own first round pick into 2030, right? That's the first time they can move their own first round pick. And so that raises some questions there as well on what they're going to do. So they don't have the type of picks that other teams have available. So they would be hoping that a player like Tyler Hero, if they even want to move off of Tyler Hero in that type of move, is really enticing. They have the salary that they can match. Getting the salary isn't necessarily going to be the problem, but what do the Suns get out of that? And that's where the Miami Heat being on this list is a little bit questionable for me if it's going to be something that actually happens. But I know that Pat Riley is going to be trying to make his push because that's what Pat Riley does. He tries to get players into the building, and he wants to keep this team competing at a certain level, and we'll see if he can do that. Next up on the list was the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, this is an interesting team as well. Anthony Davis is a player that is already – Anthony Edwards is already a player that is basically talked like Kevin Durant is a player that he grew up watching, and he kind of idolizes Kevin Durant in a way. And so now that you have that aspect of things, I think that plays a part into that. Like, can Minnesota get it? Again, much like the other teams, they can get the contracts together, whether it's signing trades, whatever else it is. They can make something shake as far as getting contracts that match. The question around that is the draft picks. Do they have the type of draft picks that the other teams have to include in that? That's the question that you have there as well. So, we'll see. Ultimately, where that goes. So they owe picks out. For example, they owe some picks out to like San Antonio and things like that. So you see what happens there. But if the Minnesota Timberwolves are truly looking to make a trade like Kevin Durant, what does that mean for like Naz Reid, the Julius Randles, right? The Rudy Goberts, stuff like that. They do have Rob Dillingham, and that's probably the biggest trade asset that they're looking in a case like that is Rob Dillingham, the potential point guard that you want to Devin Booker. Next to Devin Booker, if you're the Phoenix Suns, it's Terrence Shannon Jr., a more promising player there, being 25 years old, but only going into his second year in the league. Is he a player that you want to look at and take a look at there? So they have some interesting pieces that they could try to get involved if that ends up being the case, if they want to. It makes sense for KD to want to go to that team as well to pair with Anthony Edwards and have a young player is there to kind of be you're his running mate. I'm not going to say he's your running mate. You'll be his running mate at that point in time. So the Minnesota Timberwolves make some sense here too, even though the assets isn't as straightforward. And then the New York Knicks being another team on this list. And I think it makes some sense just in the fact that it's New York. And they have some talent there. They call them Wingstop, all the wings that they have there. Could they be willing to get off of some of that? Pair Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns with Kevin Durant. It's a potential if they want to do that. Now, that would be the Suns then doubling down on like getting some of these wings that they have here. Mikal Bridges, who's expiring, who you could take a look at there. Maybe that's a player that could be on the move potentially there as well. I don't know if they include Towns. I don't think that's the case, even though it seemed like after the season and some of that talk came out that you are looking at, maybe some teammates aren't necessarily happy with Karl Anthony Towns. So, the Knicks make some sense there. But we got an update of that basically almost right before I started recording that the New York Knicks aren't necessarily eyeing a trade for Kevin Durant, if you want to believe that. That one comes from Steve Popper of News Daily Sports, who says this. By the way, the coaching search is on, hearing from the league source that despite reports and his all-time greatness, Knicks are not one of the teams in on Durant. Now, Stephen A. Smith named the Knicks as one of his favorites to acquire Durant, but we know that he has his own personal inclinations there when it comes to the New York Knicks. So there he goes when it comes down to that one. I think that the Knicks will get more clarity on the direction of the franchise after they hire their head coach, but they got to get it together soon. The draft is in 14 days, and that is where most of the speculation has gone, that's where you're going to see Kevin Durant moved is by the NBA draft. And if that's the case, the Knicks are going to have to get their shit together sooner rather than later. But what it does seem like is that Kevin Durant does have a list of teams that he's more interested in, but he may even be open to some other things, maybe, right? And so that's the thing that you're looking at for when it comes down to this one. The biggest sticking point I think with this is that Kevin Durant does not want to be a one-year rental. He wants to have something with his future locked in. He wants some form of a extension in a trade like this. And there's questions on if that's going to be something that's on the table with some of these teams. But let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Just a quick update I wanted to bring here. You guys can follow us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799, or the number one spot for everything basketball related. See you guys the next time I feel like making a video, which finals are tonight, Friday night. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.